Hey everyone, welcome to Player Profiler Primetime News. I'm Mike Lindberg, and tonight I'm joined, as always, with my co-host Jeremiah Retzlaff. It's September the 2nd, and we are live here, and we're getting you the latest updates, and we're going to make you stay ahead in the fantasy football game. So we've got a jam-packed show tonight, included rapid-fire news on Ricky Pearsall's shocking incident, Brandon Aiyuk's massive extension with the 49ers. We'll also dive into Jacoby Brissett's new role, with what it means for Drake Maye, and discuss key player updates. Don't miss out on our bullish or bearish segment, Coach's Corner, Chef's Table, and our heated combat zone debate, and who will score more fantasy points in 2024, Tajay Spears or Tony Pollard. So let's get this show going with our top stories. Ricky Pearsall shot in the chest over his Rolex watch. Instant reaction, serious part, the lighter side of actual NFL situation. What's happening there, Jeremiah? Give us an update on what's going to happen in the Ricky Pearsall situation. Pretty shocking events happened there.
Hey, this game we go to escape, but there are the serious elements. Of course, life is serious. Ricky Pearsall will start on the reserve non-football injury list. He's out for at least the first 4 games of the season. From then on, we will see a very serious incident for him. Ricky Pearsall caught at the wrong place at the wrong time, all over a material item. Granted, a Rolex watch is a very expensive material item. Unfortunately, people have desperate motivation to do awful things to other people in order to get what they want. The sad thing is that this happened here in San Francisco. Okay, so that's his NFL hometown. So as there are concerns being laid out with the Packers and the Eagles game in Brazil, here we had somewhere home here, Ricky Pearsall gets attacked in San Francisco. So you hate to see it. You're just grateful for Pearsall being okay. As I got this news, I had seen some more daunting headlines that were being floated out there. And I just felt this dystopian feeling of, is Ricky Pearsall no longer going to be with us? That's the gravity of the situation as you're taking the news in real time. So having that moment of disconnecting the guy who will be on your fantasy rosters to switching over to his life being in danger, that was really something else. So the thought of how fragile life is really creeps to the forefront. That's the most important thing. So your brain goes from this escape that we have, you associate Ricky Pearsall almost like this video game, right, that we have, to then the real life ramifications. So now to the lighter side, which is how we escape, right? On the football field, as it stands, we will watch Ricky Pearsall's recovery. As it had sat prior to this tragedy, Brandon Aiyuk was just fresh off his new contract, which you'll talk about in a moment, Mike. It is the Aiyuk Debo show in San Francisco, with George Kittle wreaking havoc over the middle, and this guy CMC, who you may have heard of. So Pearsall is an excellent depth piece with a bright future. To tie it all together once again, we are just grateful that Ricky Pearsall is going to be okay. As it sits now, he's still a contingent piece on the field for the 49ers' future. So again, we wish him well in all of his recovery. Now, Mike, I teased it a little bit with the Brandon Aiyuk contract. The 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk have agreed to terms on a 4-year, $120 million extension. Seemed like the drama of the summer, right, with $76 million guaranteed. What do you make of that, Mike? What are your impressions on Brandon Aiyuk getting the bag?
Well, the fantasy gamers can finally breathe a sigh of relief after what summer of up and down. I know that on the Wake and Take, they made a joke, Theo and Jason, about like how many thumbnails the Wake and Take had of Brandon Aiyuk. I thought that was hilarious. And now it is now done. With this contract valued at $120 million, Aiyuk is set to remain a key piece of the 49ers offensive puzzle for the foreseeable future. The extension not only squashes any trade rumors, but also ensures that Aiyuk will be fully committed to the team, providing a stable, high upside option for fantasy teams despite some potential rust and injury risk. early in the season. Aiyuk is poised to be a top 15 wide receiver at his current ADP. That's what is expected to be as the season approaches. I'm not so, convinced that Aiyuk is going to hit his ADP this year. I got a lot of red flags right now going out of that San Francisco 49er situation here, with Ricky Pearsall already, seeing some injury there. Well, obviously, it was out of his hands, but you're seeing Trent Williams already maybe not committed at this stage. He could see some time, holding out. And if that were to happen, Brock Purdy's efficiency could go right down, and that could really mean bad things for Brandon Aiyuk as well. But we can't, speculate that. Hopefully Williams does, come back and play the start of the year. So, Purdy remains one of the most undervalued quarterbacks in fantasy football. His efficiency metrics are through the roof. We know that he finished in, a very good stat, points per drop back, and he's elite in that category. I know that Kyle Shanahan schemes him in, and he's got a very pass happy offense, but they're short passes that, are very effective. But he's got good weapons. Aiyuk is adding to that room once again. We got Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and we can't forget about Christian McCaffrey, who's elite. So Aiyuk's performance last season, 75 receptions, almost 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns was his career high. And if we get that this season, people will be happy. I'm not so sure those numbers are going to be attainable, but it's set in stone there. He's a 49er now. And yeah. So, folks, if you're enjoying the show, don't miss out on more exclusive content. Subscribe to the Player Profiler YouTube channel at Player Profiler News. Follow us on Twitter at Profiler_NFL and visit our website, www.playerprofiler.com/news for all the latest and breaking news and its impact on fantasy football. Stay ahead of the game with Player Profiler. Now, Jacoby Brissett has been named the starting quarterback in New England. A lot of people had high hopes for Drake Maye heading into this season, especially, later on in their fantasy drafts. If you were scooping him up, people had high expectations that he would be in there. They're taking some time with him. It could be a good situation. I mentioned this on our show last week. I'm pretty sure that, if they can incubate him, develop him, could be another, Jordan Love situation. What are your thoughts on Jacoby Brissett starting? I think, they're saving their young quarterback with such a poor offensive line that the Patriots have. I just think that it's a smart decision to let him watch from the sideline, watch a veteran maybe take a couple hits earlier in the season.
I love the name that you pulled with Jordan Love. I don't think it'll take near as long, but that's a very good example. With rookie quarterbacks who aren't guaranteed the week 1 start and are put into a competition, we usually have that bye week marker to go by as a decent clue to when the rookie quarterback will play. So recall with JJ McCarthy and the Vikings that all the conversation was around when McCarthy would take over from Sam Darnold. So the sentiment was post Vikings bye week 6. JJ McCarthy would probably take over. We won't know due to JJ McCarthy's season-ending injury after such an incredible preseason showing. Now with Drake Maye, we don't have that bye week meat shield luxury. The Patriots bye week is week 14, and so is 100 other teams. If you've been drafting these best ball in these best ball streets, so many people have week 14 buys. So short of an injury to Jacoby Brissett, an actual decision will have to be definitively made to start Drake Maye. Drake Maye looked excellent in preseason, but Jacoby Brissett gets the nod from head coach Jeremiah Mayo. Patriots fans and people who have drafted Drake Maye are not going to be happy initially. I take this news as head coach Jeremiah Mayo, kind of to what you were saying, Mike, is protecting Drake Maye from early season mayhem. The Patriots offensive line is in rough shape. Would you rather the Patriots start off poorly record-wise and have Drake Maye take over to give a look at the future, or would you rather Drake Maye start from the jump and the Patriots struggle mightily? If you do the former, you set up Drake Maye to come in without any pressure as the Patriots rebuild. Think about not worrying about record and just worrying about development. So if you throw Drake Maye to the Wolves, it can create unneeded pressure. In Superflex redraft, keep Drake Maye as a high upside 3rd or 4th quarterback. In Dynasty, buy from any weak hands. You likely won't pry Drake Maye off Dynasty holders, So what you should do is lay off the lowball offers that come your way. And if you get those lowball offers coming your way, that's just confirmation that people know that you've got a great asset on your hands. So it's just a matter of time. He looked really electric in preseason. So it's just delayed a bit for Drake Maye. I would not panic at all. I actually think we see him in season. We just don't have that marker of that bye week that would be perfect somewhere in the quarter to midway mark where we would have a handoff. But I think it'll definitely happen before the week 14 bye. Now, Mike, with Samaj P. Ryan, Juju Smith Schuster, Hollywood Brown is out for the season opener. We're getting just a mixture of things coming in for the Kansas City Chiefs where, Isaiah Pacheco is getting some company. What's going on with Hollywood Brown being out for the season opener? Can you just give us a beat and a pulse on what is going on with the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, it's keeping us all busy on the news desk, that's for sure. Keeping up with the Chiefs in general. It's been like that since they won the Super Bowl. It's been nonstop headlines from the Kansas City Chiefs since the Super Bowl victory, whether it was, Chris Jones signing or L'Jarius Sneed out the door, them bringing in Marquise Brown, and then, moving up in the draft to grab Xavier Worthy. There's just been no shortage of storylines from the Chiefs. And now, as the season draws near, excitement is building and a highly anticipated showdown between the Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens with the season opening fast approaching. Coach Andy Reid shared critical updates on several key players, including newly acquired Samaje Perine, Juju Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown, and now news out of camp about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Each of these updates play significant role in shaping the team's strategy and expectation in this upcoming game. Recently acquired Denver Broncos Samaje Perine is expected to make an impact in the Chiefs' backfield, known for his versatility in both pass catching and pass protection. Perine is in contention for the backup role alongside Carson Steele with his experience, given how valuable that is in the current shakeup of the running back room. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is now on the injured reserve. That's not good starting out the year. He is now, with an illness listed, 4 games out. Perine's role becomes even more critical to the Chiefs offense. Juju Smith-Schuster, who also joined the team earlier this week, is another new addition poised to contribute. His prior experience with similar offensive systems should facilitate a smoother transition, although his playing time will be somewhat limited, especially initially. Smith-Schuster's integration into the lineup will be watched closely as he could provide a much-needed boost to the core, especially that is light with Hollywood Brown's injury. The Chiefs are fortunate to have a 10-day break period after their Thursday night game, which could aid in Brown's recovery and potentially allow him to start in week 2 as they face another tough competition in the Cincinnati Bengals. So the Chiefs are off to a really tough schedule to start the year, and you would expect that from, a Super Bowl contender and, a back-to-back Super Bowl victory. So starting out the season, Ravens, Bengals. I think that was a really strong move for the Chiefs, picking up, Samaje Perine to add depth. They knew Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think, all the way through the preseason here, wasn't in the shape there to make an impact. So, that was a huge move for the Chiefs, and I think it adds a layer of stability. And I still am very high on Isaiah Pacheco, but there might be somebody else in this room that isn't so. So, Jeremiah, take it away, buddy.
Hey, so with bullish and bearish, we're about to go into that, but
Yeah.
it just feels like this entire off season we have not been hit with, knock on wood, any type of real devastating injury that just sunk, where everybody's rushing to see how many shares of a player that they have. And after week 1, though, there are going to be injuries as you're watching come Sunday. It may even happen Thursday and in this Friday game. So be ready. Every single week, there's churn and burn. And if we just knew and understood about what goes into players getting injury, if we had a way to track, I think the Podfather has something for us.
Hey, you're in your fantasy draft and someone says, hey, that guy's injury prone. I don't want him. And you're like, I don't know. I don't think you can predict injuries. Well, guess what? Now you can! Injury proneness is real! At Player Profiler, we have the data on these players, and it's all in the Injury Finder app. Their injury track record back through time, exactly where they were injured, how severe it is. We look at the BMI data, and we crunch it all together, and we give you probabilities that a player will miss multiple games this NFL season, as well as the complete database of NFL injuries and the ability to compare two players and look at their injury track record. The Injury Finder is powerful, and it's only $5. If it's worth it to have that peace of mind when you're drafting, go get it.
Now, let's head into bullish and bearish.
0-1. MO, come on.
All right, bullish, bearish. Every week, Mike and I alternate who we're bearish and bullish on. I have loved hearing Mike's picks, and it just gives you a different way to stretch your brain and think differently. So we love to be bullish, but part of deciphering things in fantasy football is our ability to be bearish. And like people, in the stock market, you like to be bullish or long on a stock, and it can be frightening to short a stock. There's money to be made, though, in shorting a stock that does not perform. So if we apply that similar concept to a market for our fantasy football drafts, we can think like that, and we want to be divergent from the pack. Part of where I like to be divergent from the pack here is a player who seems to have some consensus. Mike spoke to his bullishness on Isaiah Pacheco. So for me, I am bearish on Isaiah Pacheco. Reasons being, for money and mouth, I am out on Isaiah Pacheco, and I have 4% rostership on Underdog. So prior to, this was built largely before Samaje Perine signed with the Chiefs. I like to apply what is called, when I'm drafting, a factor of one removal for players to tell a bullish story. So a factor of one removal for somebody like Blake Corum is a potential injury to Kyren Williams. Easy, simple, contingent play that we can track the payoff. The opposite of that, though, is when you add another factor. In adding Samaje Perine, that is another factor that gets in the way of Isaiah Pacheco being a full-on bell cow. The PPR goodness wears off a tad with Perine's ability in the passing game, and you're packing in some splicing off of the rush share that will take away from Pacheco and go to Samaje Perine. Now bring in Carson Steele, who is looking like he could be a goal line threat. What is to stop the Chiefs from having Pacheco be more of a between-the-20s rusher, with Perine getting some third down work and pass down share? So nightmare, bearish scenario is between the 20s, Perine takes the passing downs, and in tight along the goal line, in comes Carson Steele for the touchdown share. So you're having a running back committee set up more formidable than you'd like. So let's talk about what goes into drafting Isaiah Pacheco. If you get him at 32 ADP on Underdog as RB10, you're hoping to get the bell cow usage that costs so much more than when you're drafting, let's say, CMC, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, and Devon Achane. So you're hoping to get something out of Isaiah Pacheco. So I understand. Let's lay out. There is a bullish case there in price, and what you're paying for what you're hoping for output is definitely there. And I can see the appeal in the Chiefs offense for Isaiah Pacheco. But with that, players I'd rather have who go near Pacheco, give me Devonta Smith. This is on Underdog again. DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, Derrick Henry, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, teammate Rashee Rice, Josh Allen, Travis Etienne, who goes 8 picks later, Amari Cooper, another teammate, Travis Kelce, and Trey McBride. So overall, I like the Chiefs passing attack versus and against Isaiah Pacheco. So I like the players I listed at ADP versus Pacheco. The Perine and Steele development are just cherries on top of the Pacheco fade that I have. So I have no problem taking stands against the field. We bet bullish, but shorting the market to tie it all together can be just as profitable, even if it may seem scary. Mike, what do you think of that?
Well, I have a hard time you talking about a Chiefs player in such bane. But you know what? I see where you're coming from. I get it. That is a threat. A guy that I think he had over 60 like targets last year in the Denver Broncos offense. That's not to be understated. Yes, he's going to maybe play a role in that offense, but I also do think that the Chiefs are going to score a lot more points in 2024 with how much more potent their offense can be with those burners on the outside and Marquise Brown and Xavier Worthy. So I think that Mahomes is due for a career year, and when they score that many points, I think that Pacheco is going to have an opportunity to really be a threat in the red zone for them. So I get where people are coming from. I'm still pretty high on him, and if I can get a little bit of a discount on him in some of these drafts, I'm going to try and do that because his upside is there, and we've seen what running back in an Andy Reid offense can produce, like a Kareem Hunt in years past. If he could be a bell cow, it could work. But like you said, that definitely deters him from being a bell cow in that offense. So good call.
So there's a point there in markets for the audience listening. There I am bearish on Isaiah Pacheco, and there is an opportunity for Mike to be bullish on the dip. So scooping the dip, we apply some market principles, correct? Now, I spoke a little bit in my contingency example about somebody like Blake Corum. Mike, you're speaking to the fact tonight that you are bullish on Blake Corum. Can you tell us more about the Rams rookie running back?
Ash, first out, shout out to over 196 people watching live on Twitter or X. I appreciate that and all the support in this coming season. Everybody, you got questions, be sure to put them in the chat there too. We'll try and get to them at the end of the show here. So, but I'm bullish, yeah, for sure. And I think this is going to get me some good book praise from some of the people in the higher ups in the player profiler, mainly Matt Kelly here. But Blake Corum, man, I think he's poised to have a breakout season, and landing with the Rams is a favorable situation, even though he is behind Kyren Williams. He is, though, drafted in the third round of this draft. Corum brings a powerful dynamic of rushing style that could be a game changer for fantasy gamers. With Williams already, he dealt with some foot injury. He had some issues throughout training camp. He wasn't a full participation throughout the whole thing. Corum's role and his value did skyrocket this summer. His impressive college resume, nearly 60 touchdowns over 3 seasons at Michigan, illustrates his ability to find the end zone and handle a high volume of touches. He's basically, Kyren Williams, but faster, bigger, stronger. He's more efficient. So he's exactly what Sean McVay really likes in his offense, and I just think Blake Corum is the talent's going to emerge. Something's going to happen, and we see the situation around Kyren Williams is further going to boost Corum's fantasy appeal. Williams' injury and the fact that he's been involved in additional roles such as returning punts adds a layer of risk to his fantasy outlook. McVay's decision to use Williams in this way may lead to a higher injury situation, which would make Corum such a valuable handcuff should Williams miss time. And if Corum were to step into a prominent role, I don't think he's going to be looking back with the way he can run the ball and how efficient he can be in the red zone. His fit in McVay's offense cannot be understated. McVay has historically utilized running backs effectively, and with a creative offensive scheme, Corum could thrive as the rushing attack and notably more aggressive in the latter part of the season. This would shift the Rams to a smash mouth approach, which helped Williams excel last season, and that would benefit the same for Corum. They have a dynamic offense. We know they can score a lot of points. They have elite passer in Matthew Stafford and very dynamic wide receivers. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua will likely open up running lanes for whoever is running the ball, and Corum will be an asset, I'm sure of it, coming down the stretch here. His ADP reflects his potential upside. While initially viewed as a backup, his role could expand significantly if Williams struggles with injuries or struggles in general or needs more of a breather because he's doing punt returns. So Corum offers significant upside for fantasy gamers willing to take that chance. And if you're still doing a draft, I'd be looking at him in the, targeting him. I'd even reach a round or two for Blake Corum because of the opportunity that could arise, and he could be a league winner headed into 2024 and be on people's radar headed into 2025. What are your thoughts on Corum there, Jeremiah? Did I appease you a little bit here?
Yeah. Oh man, talk dirty to me, Mike. I've got
Yep.
36% pre-NFL draft on underdog Blake Corum. I've got 21% in all my post-NFL drafts. I've got him in Dynasty. I've got him in redraft, all over the place. The X app will break if Blake Corum is in there and he's taken the running back share, if he is there from opportunity share, or if he's there from contingent opportunity due to injury, anything, just outright taking the role, the X app will just be dysfunctional. You'll have to go out and just like yell out to people like, hey, Blake Corum's going off, like to people in your neighborhood, because that's how you're going to have to communicate. It might shut things down for a bit. The hype is all there. I am bullish. I am so much with you. Love it. Give us some Blake Corum. All about it, man.
Sweet. Let's go. All right, man. Let's get your opinion. Who are you breaking down this week in Coach's Corner, Jeremiah? What are we hearing about?
We're going to hear about the Go Pack Go Green Bay Packers. All right, so I'll present the Green Bay Packers. All right, so just updating. We have talked about them in the past, but there's been some fluid news with them. So let's run down the Green Bay Packers heading into 2024. Josh Jacobs, RB12 on underdog in round 4. These are closeout drafts. All right, the season starts on Thursday. The Packers will ride Josh Jacobs early until the wheels fall off. 13 games played in 2023, was first in opportunity share, 5th in snap share, 11th in carries. Remarkably, in the passing game, Josh Jacobs was 7th in yards per route run at the RB position in 2023 with 1.64. While the Packers utilize multiple backs, expect Josh Jacobs to eat at the opportunity share buffet in 2024. The Packers have signed Josh Jacobs in hopes that they can get the 2022 version, who scored 19.3 fantasy points per game. Josh Jacobs is the rare back who can provide bell cow usage, and you're not having to pay those round 1 and 2 prices. So shout out to what we just talked about with the Isaiah Pacheco prices, but Josh Jacobs clearly presents a value. Jaden Reed, wide receiver 35, being drafted at the 5-6 turn, was starting with the Packers receivers. When you start talking religion and politics, people just get wary, right? Now, if you start talking about which Packers receiver will emerge from the pack in 2024, you've got some fighting words with people. Jaden Reed, all right, he's called the War Daddy, offers 4.45 speed, desirable hybrid wide receiver usage in the rush and the passing game. From PFF, Jaden Reed had 119 rushing yards on 11 rush attempts. Expect the rush attempts to increase. We wish cast all the time about Deebo Samuel-like players. Rondale Moore was idealized prior to his injury, but the usage was never there, nor was the talent, if we're being honest. We really wanted Rondale Moore to hit. Xavier Legette is an archetype that comes to mind, but Jaden Reed is the closest thing. For Jaden Reed to pay off, he'll need to increase from his 56.8% snap share, which was 82nd at the wide receiver position. So for the steepest ADP cost, Jaden Reed needs to see the field more as far as steepest cost for Packers receivers. Otherwise, Jaden Reed is at risk of not being efficient enough to pay off at ADP. Now take Christian Watson, wide receiver 41 on underdog, going in late round 6. For Christian Watson, the fall off is simply his injury history. Skill is never an issue. Can the hamstrings hold up? I'm betting against Christian Watson in 2024 based on how I'm clicking and selecting in my drafts. In 2022, here's something bullish though. From week 10 to week 13, Christian Watson was wide receiver 10 or better and had 5 weeks in the season as wide receiver 13 or better. Christian Watson's most bullish stat that I found on Player Profiler was last year. Watson was number 1 in fantasy points per target with 2.52 and 3rd in fantasy points per route run with 0.64. So the volatility towards the upside is real. I'm bearish on Christian Watson, but I did want to present some bullish information for the viewers. Jordan Love, QB9, being drafted in round 8 on underdog as we're closing things out. 7th in passing yards in 2023. as Jordan Love eclipsed 4,000 passing yards. Jordan Love was 5th in pass attempts, 2nd in red zone attempts with 100. 32 passing touchdowns, was number 2 in the league. Jordan Love was 6th in money throws with 23, 6th in expected points added with 128.2, 4th in play action completion percentage at 66.4%. So good luck getting caught trying to tackle Josh Jacobs or decipher who has the football. Defenses are going to get torched in 2024 by the Packers. So I've just rattled off a few stats from Player Profiler on Jordan Love's page. I encourage our viewers to just park it at Jordan Love's Player Profiler page and bask in the numbers that he posted. If you want an overarching message, if you're trying to decipher between the receivers, which running back is going to get everything, between Lloyd and Jacobs, what the split share is going to be, what's going to go on in the tight end room, just know, buy and be bullish on Jordan Love in 2024. Romeo Doubs, let's pivot to him, wide receiver 50, being drafted as on Underdog in round 9. Romeo Doubs was wide receiver 36 last year, so there's a little discrepancy. In the playoff game versus the Cowboys, where the Packers just stomped the Dallas Cowboys, Doubs had 6 receptions for 151 yards with a touchdown versus Deron Bland as the primary corner. This resulted in 27.1 fantasy points. So pick your poison on who you want to stop in Green Bay in 2024. In insurance, there is this concept called better, faster, cheaper. You can have 2, but you can't have all 3. So for defenses in 2024, they'll be able to pick a few players to stop, but they won't be able to stop every single one of them. So better, faster, cheaper, defenses need to pick 2, but they won't be able to get all 3. And that's going to result in a lot of Packers touchdowns and scoring. Dontavian Wicks, wide receiver 54 on Underdog, goes in round 10. All right, how is this fair, right? Wicks gets the Devontae Adams comparisons, and he's the cheapest wide receiver at ADP. Wicks got the 65-yard touchdown reception in the preseason opener against the Cleveland Browns. For best ball, it has always been to chop up exposure to all the Packers wide receivers. In redraft, you're stashing Wicks and Doubs late as you can afford to do so, whether it's ESPN, Sleeper, Yahoo, and other redraft platforms. They don't have as sharp an ADP as Underdog. Absolutely take advantage. If Wicks is out there on, or any Packers receiver is out there on your waiver wire, scoop them up. It's worth the stash. Not necessarily, it'll be tough to decipher who is the every week starter, especially between Doubs and Wicks, but by all means, you've burned way worse picks on your bench in the past, so absolutely scoop them up. Luke Musgrave goes as tight end 17 in round 13. Luke Musgrave, sneakily, as much as everyone discusses the Packers conundrum of how do you get 4 receivers to fit in the 2 or 3 wide receiver sets, the Packers are a prime candidate to run more 12 personnel than expected. Luke Musgrave was 11th in ADOT, deep targets, as well as yards per target with 7.7. And Luke Musgrave was 6th in target quality rating. There is some signal that Musgrave can crack into the top 12 after being the tight end 30 last year. Let's go to Marshawn Lloyd, running back 56 on Underdog in round 15. He's not dead yet. Marshawn Lloyd has been eerily similar to the path that Kendre Miller has taken in his young career. Lloyd is practicing this week. I would not roll out Marshawn Lloyd in seasonal leagues, but it would not surprise me at all if Lloyd sprung a long run that gets everyone back in, and you better hope that Marshawn Lloyd is on your bench and not the waiver wire or somebody else's team. Marshawn Lloyd should be rostered everywhere. One of the best feelings in fantasy football, and everyone's about to experience this, is when a player goes off on your bench and you don't have to lose sleep over the waiver wire. Your opponents search for the player and they see your team's name next to that player. It is so satisfying. Just, hey, there's this player. Like, hey, who's got this player? Oh, they're rostered. And then it's your team, Mike, that's listed next to it. How great does that feel, right? Tucker Kraft, tight end 30, goes around 18, 6'5", 254 pounds. Tucker Kraft, this is still unfair, was 5th in yards per target with 8.9 at the tight end position and 8th in yards per receptions with 11.5. 5th in true catch rate at 93%. Matt LaFleur has a luxury of options that is laughable to deploy. And then you have Emmanuel Wilson. When the Lloyd news hit and A.J. Dillon being out for the season, Wilson got some bump. If you deploy any running back on a 53, by all means, go and get yourself some Emmanuel Wilson. But we are so back in and so happy. I've got bags and bags of Marshawn Lloyd, so I'm ecstatic. And from what the news was before, I'm very happy. Then you have Bo Melton, who could probably fill out somebody else's wide receiver room. Is there down in round 18? So, Mike, what do you make of the Green Bay Packers in 2024?
Well, I had them pegged as coming out of the NFC, so I think they're very, very strong contenders on that side. I think if they could end up winning that division in the cold weather, I think they could be very hard to beat in Green Bay. So I'm very high on this team. I like them a lot. Like you have some very good takes, especially later on in the drafts where you see like a Dontavian Wicks go. I'm really high on him. Romeo Dobbs, those are good values because, they could be a guy that you could plug in your lineup later on, especially if one of them gets injured. And there has been a lot of history of Green Bay Packer wide receivers being injured over the last couple of years. So I love your takes on there, man. And now it's my turn. And I'm going to talk about a team on the rise again. They're 1 year off of a Super Bowl victory. So let's break down the Los Angeles Rams, my friend. So I broke down the running back room situation a little bit here. We know that Kyron Williams is going to be the guy that's starting, obviously getting the run, but we talked about Blake Corum in depth. Jeremiah and myself are really high. So we're going to kind of skip over the running back situation because I went deep into it. But let's talk about the Rams in general. They had a solid season last year, finishing 10-7 with a competitive wild card loss that they didn't quite reach the heights that they did in 2018, 2021. As they enter 2024, the team faces a new era with Aaron Donald's retirement and significant changes on offense. Head coach Sean McVay remains in charge with Mike LaFleur as offensive coordinator. Key opposite, you're going to see Cody Parkinson in the lineup now. That is going to add some intrigue, in my opinion. Jimmy Garoppolo, Boston Scott are new additions. With people leaving like Carson Wentz, Royce Freeman, not huge headlines coming in and out, but we know about Blake Corum and his relevance that could happen in fantasy football, and Jordan Whittington as well. These are rookies that could make an impact. But let's talk a little bit about Matthew Stafford in last season, where he averaged 264 passing yards per game, 1.6 touchdowns, and 17 roughly fantasy points per game. Wasn't particularly remarkable, but he was okay. He finished as the QB 16 in fantasy points per game with a strong finish in the latter half of the season when both rookie Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp were both on the field. He saw significant value uptick when that happened. However, the lack of rushing ability and the occasional interception woes limit his ceiling. While he demonstrated strong play down the stretch, his overall performance was hampered by the offense that ranked 22 in pass play rate. His backup, Jimmy Garoppolo and Stenson Bennett, they offer different levels of intrigue, but I'm not going to start either of them if the Stafford is out. His current ADP, though, QB 19, reflects a similar valuation given his age and the nature of his role, but they are a team that I like to see continue to make waves. They're a high octane offense, and I'm looking forward to seeing how these two wide receivers, in particular Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, coexist in 2024. This group is one of the more intriguing units to watch. The forefront, Cooper Kupp, whose value has been somewhat undervalued due to his recent injury concerns and age-related skepticism, but as it stands right now, in the last week or two, these fantasy drafts are coming along. We're seeing his name get steamed up quite a bit. A lot more people are seeing the upside and remembering how Cooper Kupp catapulted their fantasy team to victory in years past. And if you get a little bit of discount and he floats into the top 10 and you can get him in, round 3 or 4 of your draft, people are taking that gamble now. And I'm seeing it happen way more often. I saw him go, I think it was 18th overall in a redraft league yesterday, if you will, and that's that's a big reach in my opinion, but that could be that could pay off dividends if he can, continue his surgeons like he had last year. He was still very efficient with his touches and everything like that. The Rams receiving core with Puka Nacua, he made a massive impact his rookie season, drafted in the 5th round. Nacua had one of the best rookie seasons ever in history, finishing as the wide receiver 4 in PPR formats. He averaged almost 18 fantasy points per game, demonstrating his ability to produce even in a challenging situation with Kupp healthy and sharing the field. Nacua will continue to see significant opportunities, but his ability to maintain high production levels with Kupp in the lineup, it's further cements his value. Nakua's ADP is a bit lower because of injury, but now it's starting to come up. And if you were able to gather some discounts on the Nacua situation because people were scared of it, you might have made some good situation out of that. But if either Kupp or Nacua were to miss time, we know that guys like Demarcus Robinson can fill in. Tutu Atwell last year also had a significant role. So outside of the starting two, we got to look at Nacua and Kupp. And those are the guys that people are drafting highly. And we know that Matthew Stafford has been able to sustain 2 top 24 wide receivers at a time. But let's see if he can sustain 2 top 15 wide receivers, because that's what he's being targeted at. And if he were to do that, his value, Matthew Stafford, would be probably a discount because, that would probably warrant him finishing a little bit better than the QB 19 he's being drafted at. So, talking about the tight end room here and the situation, I talked a little bit about them bringing in Colby Parkinson, Davis Allen, Tyler Higbee in the mix, but Parkinson is ranked as the tight end 37. He was given a substantial 3-year contract, so suggesting he may have a significant role. However, Higbee's ACL injury could sideline him for much of the season, possibly regulating him to a rotational role upon his return. Davis Allen, who showed some promise with limited action last year, could carve out a role regardless of who starts. Overall, the Rams tight end group offers very limited fantasy appeal with Parkinson as a potential late round option, but the general lack of high volume targets for that position definitely decreases the value. But Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, what are your thoughts on Puka hitting in this year? Are you a buyer at his ADP? Because that's a pretty high ADP. He did crack the top 4 last year, so he's got the opportunity to do it. What are your thoughts there, Jeremiah?
Well, and I'll pull up for the audience the underdog ADP as well. Puka Nacua, I did a bearish segment on him about a week or two ago. I just see him being a player as well. When we make predictions of who is going to be bounced out of the first round, Puka Nacua gets the squeeze pushed out. And when I made that bearish sentiment, it was more so to the point of he could go back towards Cooper Kupp, who was going in the 3rd round. And just like, hey, there's just going to be a cooling off. You mentioned, too, the task that Matthew Stafford has now, where he's going to have to support both Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. There's been a tightening and merging of the ADP, and I think the market reflects the fact that there's sentiment towards Matthew Stafford floating the two of them, but I think they siphon off from each other, and it pulls them down, not entirely. It does not sink them, but it pulls them further down to where it may be more of a 3rd round ADP for the payoff. Cooper Kupp has just absolutely scorched up. I love what you said earlier. We really covered Blake Corum so well, and we are in on him. I like what you said about Colby Parkinson. I really hope Colby Parkinson can pay off. He was free in Dynasty. That's been one of the most fun things is when you get him, Andre Yoshivas. There's been certain players throughout the offseason that if you've just been plugged in and tuned in to, hey, follow the money. Like, what? Colby Parkinson got this deal that amount of money? All right, well, think of what teams tell you. Teams lie all the time. But when they make moves, it's an indicator and a tell. It's where they rise from the ashes and actually tell the truth. So I love your breakdown of what you have for the LA Rams in 2024.
Sweet, man. Well, we are at the last segment here before we head back, because the next time we do this show, we're going to actually have some real football to talk about. And our show is going to change a little bit in how we do it, but segments are going to be the same, but the breakdowns are going to be a little bit different in how we do it, but still going to get the same action, and it's going to be live headed into Monday Night Football. So we're going to be your primer for Monday night here at the news desk on Player Profiler News. So without further ado, let's get in to the combat zone. Jeremiah, hit it.
It's go time. It's go time. It's go time. We going up. We go.
All right. So we're going to be talking about who will finish with more fantasy points out of the Tennessee Titans backfield. Now they're splitting hairs here. Right now, Tony Pollard is leading in ADP by maybe about 5 to 10 slots, and where you see it. Let's get into it. I'm going to start this off today, and I'm going to talk about Tajay Spears and why I think he's going to outscore Tony Pollard in 2024 in this debate between the two for 2024 fantasy football supremacy in the Titans backfield. Spears has a clear edge, in my opinion, over Pollard. Despite high expectations of Pollard in 2023, his performance was disappointing for the Dallas Cowboys. His metrics in key areas such as yards per touch, yards created per touch, fell well below the average, which highlighted his inefficiency despite a significant role in the offense. Pollard's inability to convert opportunities into fantasy points despite high snap share and opportunity makes him a risky pick moving forward. In contrast, Tajay Spears had an impressive rookie season that suggests he's primed for a 2024 success. Despite limited touches, Spears demonstrated remarkable efficiency, averaging 6.9 yards per carry, which placed him in the 91st percentile among running backs. His ability to make the most out of his opportunities is evident from his 9 PPR fantasy points per game and his 14% target share, which was 7th highest in the league. His effectiveness extends beyond just yardage. He ranked 5th in the league with 4.58 yards created per touch, and his level is just good for the efficiency, suggests that Spears can be highly productive, making him a valuable asset for fantasy leagues. His ability to create yards and evade tackles is a significant advantage over Pollard, and I just think that the talent's going to emerge. They're going to split carries in the initial part of the season, probably Pollard, leading the way 60-40, but I just think as the season emerges, Tajay Spears, because of his proven efficiency and his effectiveness to make him better than a fantasy prospect than Tony Pollard. His strong rookie performance combined with Pollard's underwhelming 2023 and the uncertain role in the offense positions Spear as a superior choice, and I just think he's going to outscore him in 2024. What do you got on the other end there, Jeremiah, for me?
All right, so all my bags are packed for Tajay Spears, but like a very good lawyer, I'm just going to sit here and lie to your face. All right. Ready? Tony Pollard. It is funny, though. As I looked through the research, I was like, okay, it's kind of like you take on the client. It's like, you know what? I'm going to defend them. And as I looked, I found some good information. So let's go easy there on Tajay Spears, right? Tony Pollard, he's been buried in Left 4 Dead by the fantasy community. Tony Pollard has back-to-back seasons of 1,000 rushing yards. Tony Pollard rightly goes as the RB27 in round 9 on Underdog versus Tajay Spears, running back 34 in round 10. In 2023, Tony Pollard had 7 games as RB13 or better. Tony Pollard was RB14. Again, I talk about Tony Pollard Left 4 Dead. These are very good numbers. Just because we didn't get the top 5 season that we had wanted to squeeze from Tony Pollard doesn't mean he didn't have success. In 2023, Pollard had 55 receptions in 17 games played. In the same 17 games, Tajay Spears had 52. So it's neck and neck there. We're parsing little things, but at the same time, Tony Pollard had it. And if you want to merge them together, they're at least neck and neck the same. So you can't talk about stratospheres and not include Pollard and Spears. And rightly so, they're neck and neck in ADP. Tony Pollard was 3rd in routes run with 362. So an excellent offering in the pass game for Will Levis, who, last I checked, they're going to throw a ton. Tony Pollard was 6th in route participation at 59% at the running back position. Tony Pollard was 7th in snap share, 6th in weighted opportunities with 256, 7th in carries at 252. So who said Tony Pollard can't hold a larger workload? And hey, another year out from injury, he's getting stronger. Tony Pollard was 11th in running back targets with 67 in 2023. So again, back to Will Levis, they're going to throw a lot. Give me the veteran Tony Pollard over Tajay Spears. Tony Pollard was number 2 in red zone touches with 72. All right, that makes my eyes bulge. Number 2 in red zone touches? Excellent. So the Cowboys trusted him, and I see the Titans doing the same. And Tony Pollard was also 8th in yards created. So give me Tony Pollard, fresh and healthy, another year out from the injury over Tajay Spears. So the Titans acted quickly in free agency for 3 years at $24 million to lock up Tony Pollard. Teams can lie. I spoke about it before. Teams can lie plenty throughout the year. But a free agency signing like this tells you all you need to know how the Tennessee Titans view Tony Pollard. So factor in that Will Levis will be throwing the rock plenty, and Tony Pollard is the perfect running back to complement Will Levis in his development, with Pollard serving as an explosive safety blanket out of the backfield as a reliable target. How'd I do, Mike?
You did great. You're a great lawyer. I think you could prosecute anybody. You even made me think that Tony Pollard still got some juice left in the tank. And I'm just bugging.
And it's wild because we did our first combat zone. If I recall correctly, it was Najee Harris
and Jalen Warren.
And I had, at the time, I had a lot of Jalen Warren, but then, you put the glasses on, the magnifying glass, and I researched and I saw some very good Najee Harris numbers. So I would say if you have Tony Pollard, we've been talking best ball a lot. I throw that angle, but we're switching over. If you have Tony Pollard in Dynasty, he's not left for dead in your redraft squads. You're very wise. If you don't get Spears, apply towards Pollard. And part of this game, I know Matt Kelly talks about you know what you know, and you know what you don't know sometimes. As much as we may take a stand on a player, it is very wise in different tiers, especially which presents itself here, which I think was such a organic combat zone here with Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears to, hey, factor in what if I could be wrong into some of your analysis and part of your draft process in fantasy football. And you would be surprised how you can apply that and end up saving yourself and being right because you had enough humility to say, okay, you know what? I like this player, but let me give this player a shot over here. So this was really a fun combat zone for me.
Yeah, man, it was great to open up that view and let you do some research on a player that maybe you weren't so high on. And it was great that you opened it up and had a very convincing argument. So yeah, Tony Pollard did look good in the preseason here, and he did have that role that he was brought in to do. So yeah, there could be a very good situation here where Tony Pollard does emerge right there and become a very good situation. Now let's get into some questions here. We got one from an audience, BJN Red Baron. Hey guys, I'm on my last pick on a slow draft in Best Ball Mania and stack the Chiefs and Steelers. Should I go Calvin Austin or I can't see that it says owned or player or Roman Wilson? Calvin Austin or Roman Wilson? What do you think I know because he got a rookie coming in here. I'm going to give him my 2 cents, and then I'll let the best ball man take the forum here. But I see as Roman Wilson is a rookie. He's coming into a situation where those rookie snaps are important, especially in the preseason, to adjust to a new scheme, a new lineup. We know that Mike Tomlin likes to take it slow with some of his wide receivers in training. That's Calvin Austin is a year removed from that. He has that opportunity to maybe get in that role, especially with some with the learning curve of a rookie having to come in. It's going to take him some time. Had he played all of preseason, I would have said maybe Roman Wilson would have been the guy I picked in that situation. But for me, it would be Calvin Austin. I want to hear what Jeremiah has to say. Am I on the right track here?
Hey, I love what BJN Red Baron. Thanks for coming back. Asked an excellent question last week. So thank you for bringing the question again this week. in this situation, I would just say if you're between Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin, I would lean towards Roman Wilson. You're getting the cheapest price for Roman Wilson in this tournament setting versus a field. Now, the pebble in the rock will always be Calvin Austin and always has been, but the opportunity, the chance for that to pay off is very, very minimal. What I would just pivot and postulate to you is if you've done enough of these Chiefs Steelers builds, whether you started in June, whether it was January, essentially you've been able to do these builds since the schedule release, correct? In the event that you've had so much Roman Wilson in some of these builds, throw one on Calvin Austin if we're talking about a portfolio number. But I would say, have you been drafting Roman Wilson when he was going, I think in the 13th round, and now he's dipped all the way to round 18? Have you gotten any Roman Wilson in round 18? I would venture and veer towards the more likely scenario will be Roman Wilson paying off in round 18. And then the least likely, the pebble in the rock, will be Calvin Austin. So from a game theory perspective, if you apply 150 max lineups to BBM, granted you have other contests that you're in, but if we're talking about tournament and volume, if you have a window where you've had Roman Wilson, if you've been able to follow him down the ADP board and you've gotten him, Roman Wilson, at round 18, by all means, go for Calvin Austin. But if you have not, as we're locking in just a few days before the season starts, if you haven't locked in Roman Wilson at this round 18 price versus Calvin Austin, I would suggest, if it's just one draft here, locking in Roman Wilson. So great question, and thank you for coming back. By all means, everybody else. Shane says, Shane Manila from DD Fantasy Football, my good friend. Thank you for tuning into the show. Thank you for the retweets. It's very much appreciated. Nothing but love for my DD community and everybody who's coming out. So I love seeing everybody there. Next week, we will be on a structured show Mike had alluded to. It'll be 7:30, right up Eastern time, up to game time. And the show will look very similar. Granted, it's going to be with an in-season tilt. So thank you all for coming out, and we will see you on Monday.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.